Hello coaster lovers. So Six Flags is a massive park chain, and since they merged with Cedar Fair in November, it's pretty much a mega chain. Now they own over 45 different parks, and one of their prime parks is Six Flags Great Adventure. This park opened 50 years ago in 1974, and they probably have the biggest coaster collection including operating and defunct coasters at a whopping 30 coasters. But right now, as of March of 2024, they have 15 different coasters, including one that's opening very soon. And this is all of them ranked. So if you're new here to Keen's Coasters and are planning a trip to Great Adventure for the Big 50 or been to that park before, consider to subscribe and smash the bell for more videos. So let's start the list off with an obvious coaster, Little Devil. This originally opened as Roadrunner Railway, what a tongue twister, in 1999 on the plot where Jersey Devil's Helix is on, but in 2021 it opened up in a new location. This is a run-of-the-mill and parallel gravity coaster, a twisted drop, helix, and a bunny hill, and that's about it. So there is nothing much to this kiddie coaster. A ride that is way bigger is Harley Quinn Crazy Train. This is a Zero Tivoli coaster, and this is a clone of Cobra at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, Beaverland Mountain at Geauga Lake, Catwoman Whip at Six Flags New England, and so forth. If you ride in the front or the back, it has a tiny bit of whip, but not a whole lot. But at least it looks and probably rides smooth, and those trains are super long. A ride that definitely does not ride smoothly is the Runaway Mine Train. This is one of the park's original coasters, and it's an okay mine train. The layout is not that interesting, but during the end, that airtime mode can be pretty crazy. Definitely the best part of the ride. If you're going to ride this, make sure to ride it in the back or the front just for that airtime hole. Everything else isn't that special and relatively tame. A ride that is also not that special and tame is Skull Mountain. This is an intimate indoor coaster, and this ride has so much dang potential. Like, the outside looks amazing with the skull and waterfalls out of its eye sockets, but then you ride it, it's pretty much a roller coaster in a box. So that means absolutely no theming, which is the reason why this coaster is so low on the list. It would be cool to add a special effect like on the end of Dark Coaster where a ghost tries to eat you. That would be amazing on this ride. And speaking of indoor coasters, the next one looks pretty good. Definitely the best indoor coaster at this park. It's the Dark Knight. This is a mock Wild Mouse, and there's two other types of coasters like this at Six Flags Great America and Six Flags Mexico. The theming for this ride looks so cool. There are a lot of walls that are graffitied, and you can even see the Joker at one part during the experience. If you've ridden a Wild Mouse, you know that the trains are pretty cramped, and Dark Knight is no different. But if you can look past the cramped trains of this coaster, it's a good indoor coaster. Breaking into the top 10, this roller coaster is not that great, but it's more thrilling than Dark Knight. It's Green Lantern. This is a B&M stand-up, and only 4 in the world, and this coaster places 3rd in that ranking. The ride looks pretty shaky, it has the B&M rattle, and the layout gives me PTSD because I rode Rougarou before, and the first half is pretty much the same, and I absolutely hated Rougarou, so I'll pretty much hate Green Lantern, but I will give the ride some credit though. The second half looks pretty forceful, but everything else is just okay. And speaking of identical looking coasters, the next ride is given to an okay ride as well. It's Joker. This is the second ever SNS 40 free spin, the first one being Batman at Fiesta Texas, and these rides are basically copy and paste. Mostly every Six Flags park has one. The flipping on these rides is dependent on the weight of the vehicle, so when you have two people who are the same weight, you're not going to flip that much, but when it's off balanced, it's going to be wild. A ride that is also pretty wild is Medusa. This is a B&M floorless, and this was actually the first one, and this ride gives me Kumbo vibes with its twisted drop in the first half of the layout. The vertical loop should be pretty good. The Zero G roll is going to be absolutely whippy, but the Cobra roll won't do a lot. In the second half, it's very low to the ground, and it features 2 corkscrews while going over this big pipe thingy. I don't know what it's called, but if you know, leave a comment. But anyway, if you live in SoCal and want to experience this thing, well, Magic Mountain has a mirrored clone in Scream. The next coaster is an intense one. It's Superman Ultimate Flight. This is a B&M flyer, and just like Dark Knight, it has 2 other clones at Six Flags Great America and Six Flags Over Georgia, and this ride looks pretty solid. You actually feel like you're Superman while you traverse 2,800 feet of a sensation like no other while going 51 miles per hour. The major selling point with all these B&M flyers is the pretzel knot. It delivers super strong forces, and Superman's is no different. Outside of that, you have an inline twist into the brakes. This ride is short but sweet. Another intense B&M is Batman the Ride. Yes, this is the 3rd B&M in a row, and we're not done with B&M yet. This was the 2nd ever Batman clone, the first one being Batman at Six Flags Great America. This ride features 5 different inversions while packing in nearly 2,700 feet of pure insanity. This is one of the smaller inverts, which means it's going to be whippier, and the second half really emphasizes the intensity. The 2 wing overs, aka corkscrews, are very whippy. I've done Montu and Raptor, and those inverted corkscrews are so good, and I expect the same for Batman and all of its clones. So we're going to take a break from B&M with the next coaster, which is the new for 2024, Flash Vertical Velocity. This will be America's first ever Super Boomerang by Vekoma. The one I'm showing is the prototype in China. The first and second half should be pretty good, but that dry out stall should deliver really good hang time. The little airtime hop should give nice floater, and the other two inversions are pretty solid. The specs though are going to feel sensational with its negative Gs, and the transitions are so fluid. This will be the first new gen Vekoma to open in the US, minus Big Bear Mountain and the family suspended coasters. This ride should be a good time. Another coaster that you will definitely have a great time with, and the rest of these coasters on the list, is Nitro. Yeah, this park has a whopping 5 B&Ms, soon to be tied with SeaWorld Orlando when they open Penguin Trek. This is a pretty solid hypercoaster. It definitely gives me Diamondback vibes with the setting and huge sprawling airtime modes that I've heard one time almost vallied, but that was during the winter times. The double helix before the mid-course is super intense, and if you're lucky if the mid-course does not hit. Those final airtime hills are like ejector if the mid-course is off, but if it is, it's gonna be okay. This ride's color scheme does look pretty good in my opinion. I have no idea why people criticize the color scheme. Even though it's a tad bit bright, I think it's solid. A coaster with a better color scheme is the tallest roller coaster in the world, for now, and that is King Ka. This ride is the definition of a one-trick pony. It is the capital of clickbait thumbnails and TikTok saying, "Would you ride this?" The first launch though is a one of a kind outside of Dubai and the smaller intimate accelerators. Going over 100 miles per hour in 3.5 seconds is going to be memorable. At the top of the enormous 456-foot tall top hat, you can actually see Philly and New York City up there on a clear day. That is how tall this thing is. You can see it anywhere in the park, and it's an icon for the theme park industry. The park's newest coaster before Flash is Jersey Devil. This is, sadly, the worst RMC, but that doesn't mean it's bad. RMC has not made a bad ride yet, which means it's still phenomenal. The first drop looks amazing, the inversions have good pace besides the 0G roll, and all the airtime modes are a bliss. The smaller Raptors are definitely better like Railblazer or Wonder Woman at Fiesta, but these rides still pack in a mighty punch. I also like the color scheme. It pops in the Great Adventure Skyline, well barely, but a ride that is definitely in the Skyline is the one and only El Toro. I think most of y'all expected this to be number 1, but if you ride this on a wheel seat, it can mess you up a bit, but try not to ride on a wheel seat. But this ride is a one of a kind just like King Ka. The first drop is just pure insanity. You can't see the track until you're like a fourth of the way down, and it's really steep. Way steeper than you may expect. Then the two airtime modes afterwards is like riding an actual bull, hence the name El Toro. The turnaround is definitely pretty shaky, but in a wheel seat, it's not going to be pleasant at all. The airtime mode with the hand and head choppers are scary. Then after that leads into the one and only Rolling Thunder hill. It got the name from a past attraction, Rolling Thunder, and this hill went over the ride and it's insane. After that is a series of S-turns and hills, and that sums up this crazy Woody. This ride is definitely on my bucket list. So I want to hear from you guys. What is your consent on Great Adventures coaster lineup? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you like my content, consider subscribing. There'll be more ranked videos in the future, and there's a playlist of all of them from oldest to newest if you want to check that out. And like always, make sure to keep that adrenaline pumping, and thanks for watching.